Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit that subscribe button if you're new so you don't miss any of our great football content this season. All right, two college topics to finish. This will take 10, 15 minutes. Number one, USC in another big game. We all knew the three biggest games for USC this year. At Illinois, they surrendered over 500 yards. At Notre Dame, they gave up 442 yards. And at Oregon, they gave up 42 points, 436 yards, and the Ducks were missing their top three receivers. So once again, here we are in year 4, and every time USC is in one of these big games, those three are all on the road, they're a very mediocre defense. Their special teams in big games, a wreck, totally inconsistent. And it was interesting, I saw a quote after this loss, and Lincoln Riley once again really kind of snippy with media, very kind of snarky and, just not able to get through a press conference with any pointed criticism or anybody questioning anything. His quote was, "We're very, very close." So they carried the ball 27 times for 52 yards. What do you think Kirby Smart would say 4 years in if his Bulldogs had 27 carries for 52 yards in a big game? He would be embarrassed to say we're close. He would be freaking on fire. He would be lamenting the physicality. He would call out his team. I just think 4 years in, I know Lincoln's smart. I know he's a good offensive coach. I know he's taken Jaden Mayava from a reckless UNLV player to like a second round, third round quarterback draft pick. But I'm watching another big game with USC, and they're not close. Defensively, they're not close. First 3 years, he didn't recruit Southern California efficiently. I mean, he's not going to. They're not letting him go. But it's frustrating to hear. Right now, their bowl proposition, the projection is BYU. Now, what USC fan wants to play BYU in a bowl game and be satisfied with that?
I think the hard thing too is that Brett Venables in Oklahoma is 60 minutes away from being in the college football playoff. And Brett Venables is a good example, right? He's a defensive guy. His defense dominates, and there's a toughness to his team, and they have a clear identity. If USC, and that was, I mean, did you think they had any chance on the road at Oregon?
No,
Because I,
none.
I feel if they played, let's take Oregon and Notre Dame, two playoff teams. Oregon's obviously had some injuries. Notre Dame looks fantastic. If they play those two teams 10 times, I think they lose 9 times to both teams. It's football. It's a one-game scenario. Maybe you fumble a couple times, get a pick. Weird things happen. But they aren't even remotely close to those two teams that when you hired Lincoln Riley and the hoopla, and I bought it, I said, hey, that's a coup. Like, what? You got this guy to come. It's going to be awesome. You're 4 years in, and you're watching these playoff teams. Okay, they have a great recruiting class in 2026. Well, what took so long? Like how? So going into the 5th year, we finally have the number 1 or 2 recruiting class. I heard maybe it was Bruce Feldman mention this, that Oregon. Now, granted, they have been a better program for a while, but part of bringing
Yeah.
Lincoln back, and this is what USC fans like yourself want, the Pete Carroll days. Well, Oregon looks like that version, and USC just looks like an average, 8-9 win college football team. They look. You could replace USC with just Arizona or, just a random program. That's
Right.
what a random program looks like, not someone that you gave $120
Listen,
million to and have unlimited NIL now.
John, they didn't have to play Indiana this year. They didn't have to play Indiana last year. They didn't have to play Ohio State this year or last year. And they got Harbaugh out of the conference before they joined. This could be so much worse. They've gotten complete breaks. They got Penn State once at home. They got Harbaugh's replacement. We don't know if he's the guy. They didn't face the Buckeyes or the Hoosiers. So next year they face Ohio State and Oregon and Washington and Penn State, and Indiana and Notre Dame. So now they get several at home, but it's just 4 years in when they play elite teams, especially on the road. Special teams are often a disaster, and the defense is completely mediocre. That is the reality. They're pretty good at home. I mean, they play really different football at home because they're comfortable. Well, that's The Big Ten, the SEC, road games are discomfort. That's how you win in the SEC and the Big Ten. Ohio State can go into Penn State and win. It's not about winning the comfortable games. So I am surprised at how efficient and how successful Oklahoma's been because Brent Venables had never been a head coach and he was a defensive coach. And the whole world now moves. The rules are all helping offense. But I think at this point, 4 years in with USC, to say we're close, if you face the Buckeyes both years, you'd have two more devastating blowout losses. You're not close.
I like Dan Lanning. He seems like a really impressive guy. He took over kind of a ready-made operation.
Yes.
And I'd say the same thing. I would imagine Chip would admit to this too. Now, Dan took him to another level than Mario, just like Chip took him to another
Yes.
level from Bilotti. But those things, okay, they went from the 17th ranked team to the fourth ranked team, right?
Right.
It's a lot different. Lincoln Riley took over Oklahoma. That was a lot like Dan Lanning, kind of tailor made. Now, he took it to another level than Stoops had him, but it's a good landing spot for a job, right? Take over Arkansas tomorrow. If I'm Dan Lanning in 4 years, would he be? I don't know. And Lincoln
Yeah.
came to USC. Like that was a very challenging job, right? And a small percentage of guys, right? And if you, I don't know if Kirby fits the LA kind of ethos, but any good coach, Urban, Nick, like a high level coach would be able to handle it. But not everyone can. And there's a level of, to me, there's a craziness to you. You can't just be like, I have a lot of offensive ingenuity, create plays. Okay, there's a lot more to that. You'd
Yeah.
be able to score points any college you're coaching. What about the culture you set in practice of physicality? Because that's how it's going to translate in this conference. In a lot of places that come October, let alone November, the weather's not going to be great. And it might not be freezing cold, but you're going to have to play kind of tough bully ball. Well, that's not really how Lincoln wants to play. Why? Well, who taught Lincoln Riley how to coach football? Mike Leach, once upon a time. That's like his roots. And what was Mike Leach, who got to higher highs or as equal? Like one thing he struggled with, that Lincoln struggles with, is just defensive guys because the style of offense, it doesn't really create a physical element. Where what's Dan Lanning knows? He knows Nick Saban and he knows Kirby Smart. What their ethos is, there's a toughness to their team. You
Yeah.
see it when you watch them play. It's why they've transitioned and will transition perfectly with Ohio State, Indy. Like their culture is that Michigan. Like
Yeah.
they are the same. So when I watch Lincoln Riley, Pete Carroll's greatness was physicality and defense. Now, I think when most people just Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, but they were defined by their
Oh,
defensive
yeah.
draft picks
Their
and their
linebackers
offensive
were all
lines.
pros. They had four linebackers. Clay Matthews couldn't start. I mean, they were just Rivers, a Malaluga, and they were just so good within the front seven.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be very, very challenging. He's lucky Jim's gone because Michigan wouldn't have. And who knows? Maybe they upset Ohio State
Again,
again. But
next
how do they
year,
match? Like Signetti, clearly. Listen, I know he rubbed me wrong at first with it, but he's backed it up. He's clearly a tough guy. He's a tough guy. Like you can't. I've always said you can't fake it. You either are or you aren't. And some offensive guys just aren't. But like I don't think Sean McVay would be known as like the toughest guy on the block, but he really values defense, drafting those guys, investing in those guys. And it's something that he emphasizes, right? And it just feels like when you watch Lincoln Riley's teams, like you can't convince me that they emphasize that part of the ball. You can't. Just
no.
because you pay a defensive coordinator a lot of money, that doesn't solve your problems.
Football season's here, and if you want to go to an NFL or college football game, Game Time is the place for you. The Game Time app just gives you the advantage back to you, the fans. It's a hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. I love it. Easy to use. The Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. 100%. So they even let you preview your seat on the app. That's special. Plus, fees are always included. So what you see is what you pay every time. Take the guesswork out of buying professional football tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account. If you use the code Colin, Colin, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem code COLIN, $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Yeah, and I think they went heavy into the NIL. spent their money poorly in some instances outside of Jaden Mayava and Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison, and they neglected Southern California recruiting in that big pursuit of NIL players. And they have kind of a, the defense. They were missing Kamari Ramsey this weekend. They don't have any high level pros. I mean, their offense is Makai Lemon and Jaden Mayava. It's a two-man offense. So they just don't have enough talent, and that is overspending in NIL and spending poorly and under recruiting Southern California. Former USC coach, briefly, Lane Kiffin. Nobody exits quite like Lane. The Tennessee situation, like they wanted to burn his house down. The Raiders was messy. USC got fired in a tarmac. I was listening to Rick Neuheisel joke about it this week. Nobody leaves and exits worse than Lane Kiffin. To me, stay at Ole Miss or go pro. I just think for me, I don't want to bounce around a conference. If you can make $12 million at Ole Miss, I'll take that over the $16 million at LSU. The governor's involved at LSU. The pressure is much greater at LSU. Here's what I believe to be true. Lane knows that high school players and NIL recruits will follow an offensive coach. He'll go to the whiteboard and he'll sit down with quarterbacks, tight ends, tackles, and receivers, backs, and draw up plays. Offensive players follow the coach. Defensive players go to the 5 or 6, Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Defensive players aren't as likely to follow coaches and schemes. They want to go get paid at Texas, right? Or at Georgia
LSU.
or at Clemson. That's right. Lane can get those players there. Lane doesn't think consistently, I believe, that he can get elite 5-star defensive in the box players. He knows he can get them offensively where he can go back to USC and get them. It doesn't matter. And so to me, I think Lane's certainly good enough to do NFL, but I think that Lane has proven over time that when you put him in pressure situations, he doesn't have a filter. He doesn't have a governor. He can be a little bit snarky and off-putting and needs to put his phone down probably more often. In the end, I think Ole Miss is a great fit. And I think he'd be excellent in certain NFL cities like Arizona, where he could go back west, not high pressure. He'd be, an offensive coach with McVay and Shanahan. What do you think happens?
Well, I think he feels, he's mastered this college thing because he goes, well, we just had the greatest 3 years in the history of the program at Ole Miss, and it's because of me. Like Lane's feeling himself right now pretty big. So, and I don't blame him. I mean, what he's done at Ole Miss is pretty remarkable. But when I see a lot of people saying he can't leave because they're not going to let him coach the playoffs by all accounts and all reports, right? So if they win against Mississippi State and he's going to leave, like that will be it. Now, if he loses and leaves, Ole Miss misses the playoffs, it would get as ugly of an ending as he had in Tennessee. I mean, it would be pretty. Remember, Nick Saban told him to pack his bags and get the hell out of there going into the national championship game. But by all reports, it looks like he's going to LSU. And I understand because I think he goes, this is not a sustainable thing at Ole Miss because they're changing the NIL. At least, we'll see if it holds. But you're not just going to be able to buy players like Ole Miss has been doing. They have been the leader on the front of just buying guys. And Lane's on the right guys. Lane's talent acquisition and I would say talent evaluation has been pretty lights out. I mean, from Walter Nolan last year to this Division II quarterback, he is. So he goes, you put me at LSU. You put me, if Kalen DeBoer were to go to Penn State, some rumors out there on that one. He's just going, I will have the best roster. I'll just have Ohio State 2.0 in the South. And so to me, it does feel like he's going to leave. I do think this thing's going to be ugly. Don't necessarily blame him. I understand people in the South, kind of, especially if you're an Ole Miss fan, think you're getting screwed. But up until 3 years ago, before NIL, there's not a coach alive that would have stayed at Ole Miss over going to LSU or Florida, right? So this has changed recently, and maybe he knows that this is not a sustainable model the way it is. But only Lane Kiffin can create this type drama. I also will defend. People go, well, how are you leaving a team that has a chance to win the national championship? My pushback would be Ole Miss has no chance. Their defense isn't good. No team in college or the NFL can win a championship with a bad defense. Now, can they win a playoff game? 100%.
Absolutely.
But are they going to win 4 straight games? I mean, look at the 2 teams last year in that were Ohio State and Notre Dame. Defense matters. Texas, Georgia. Look at the teams making Penn State runs last year. defense. His defense isn't good. So he knows that like this might be as good as it gets. Now, listen, the timing, this thing is going to be a shit show here come Friday because they play the Egg Bowl on Friday. You know how this stuff. I mean, is there an announcement the moment that game ends if they win that Lane Kiffin has agreed to a deal with LSU? Feels like Jimmy Sexton's kind of being the puppet master here. The SEC. The other thing, Colin, all these schools like the NFL, right? The SEC, they're all in business together. And they have a historic television deal making $75-80 million a year. Same, no different in the NFL, right? The Rams and the Niners and the Steelers and the Ravens, they're all in business together. Yet they all work together. Like you can't, the Giants, just because they have Jackson Dart, can't just go steal McVay or Kyle, right? Because
Right.
they're all under the same umbrella. Yet in college athletics, the SEC, the two other SEC schools that look down upon Ole Miss are trying to steal their coach. So, I hear all this stuff about the business model. You could argue it's all out of whack. You can just steal coordinators. When USC needed a coordinator, what did they do? They just took UCLA's. If I just need a defensive coordinator, I just can't steal Robert Saleh from the 49ers. It doesn't work that way. So whenever I hear about the business, one thing college athletics, whenever they do get to kind of the NFL version of wherever they end up, there has to be some sort of, if you're under contract with me,
Right.
you can't just steal that's not the way it works. It doesn't work. Another broadcast network can't just steal Colin Cowherd. If I'm under contract with you, I can't just go to someone else, a
Yeah.
podcast network, steal me. That's not the way business works. Yet in college, it's like, yeah, I'm LSU. I plan on stealing you before the playoffs even start. Like that's just
Yeah.
their whole business model is a little out of whack, given the numbers in which they're now generating. They got to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, it's they didn't play the same number of, I mean, SEC for years didn't play the same number of conference games as other conferences, so they can't get their schedule. Uh, that's a podcast all onto itself.